There's something weird going on with LaMelo Ball. Back during the 2021-22 NBA season, LaMelo Ball received his first All-Star selection in a season where he recorded 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, while also being the #1 option on a Charlotte Hornets team that won 43 games, tied for the 10th best record in the NBA. Not only that, but the Hornets were the 8th best offense in the entire league, with LaMelo Ball having the 2nd highest usage rate of all players under the age of 21. This was a 20-year-old leading the Hornets to an above 500 record in his 2nd season in the NBA. While the Hornets would be unceremoniously eliminated in the play-in tournament, the biggest takeaway that most people seem to have in regards to the Hornets was that they had one of the most exciting young players in the entire NBA in LaMelo Ball. After last season, though, the overall sentiment about LaMelo seemed to change pretty quickly. A player that was once considered to be one of the highest upside guards in the league ended up on the receiving end of the empty stats label, and NBA fans quickly moved on and wrote him off. This is really confusing when you consider the fact that LaMelo missed well over half the season last year, and the Hornets having a roster that most would consider shaky at best, yet the idea that he isn't a winning player was becoming more prevalent than ever. It's worth posing the question, not just with LaMelo Ball, but with any player that puts up solid counting stats on a bad team. Is it their fault that the team is bad, or is the team just bad? Obviously, last season, we don't really have a ton to go off of, but even when LaMelo did play, he didn't necessarily look like himself. From every area of the floor, aside from at the rim, he had a down year compared to his rookie and sophomore efficiencies. When you look at his efficiency throughout the current NBA season, those 35 games from last season start to look even more fishy. So was the last season the norm? Was his rookie and sophomore season efficiencies just decent shooting luck? Obviously, that's not how statistics work, and it's much more likely that his first 2 seasons in the NBA are indicative of what the baseline is rather than last year being what we should expect going forward. One of the biggest gripes with LaMelo Ball is the fact that he's always been a relatively underwhelming finisher. Of course, his ability to get shots to fall around the basket has continued to improve as his career has progressed, but that still seems to be one of the bigger pain points that people have when it comes to his game. Let's zero in on this a little bit. Taking a look at his field goal percentage at the rim compared to the rate at which he's being assisted at the rim, we can see that he's finishing at a career high 56% clip this year, yet he's only being assisted on 9% of his made shots at the rim. Theoretically, it's more difficult to create and make your own shots at the rim, and an assisted shot at the rim is likely to be a higher percentage look than an unassisted shot at the rim. Therefore, if he's hitting his shots at the rim at a career high efficiency despite being assisted at the lowest rate of his career, then once that assisted percentage regresses to the mean, then his efficiency at the rim is probably going to be even better. All right, so I know I've thrown a lot of numbers at you, but let's look at some examples to see where exactly these improvements are coming from. One issue that LaMelo would frequently run into in the past is the fact that he'd pick up his dribble while still being pretty far away from the rim, meaning that he'd have to use his 2 steps after picking up the ball to try and make up that distance, which would put him into some awkward situations where he's trying to stretch out to get by his defender, or he's just not able to get by them at all. When you're picking up the ball this early, it really limits your options, and even though he wasn't necessarily bad at getting through his main defender during his steps after picking the ball up, he still struggled finishing through these backline help defenders that would disrupt his shots at the rim. This play is especially frustrating because he does a really good job getting Markelle Fultz to bite on the pump fake, and it gives him a ton of space to work with. John Isaac, though, he does a good job of providing help at the nail, but LaMelo could just take another dribble and go left where there's more space, and it might force help off the corner, and it could create an open kickout or let him get to the rim while the defense in the paint has their backs turned. Instead, he's going to get Isaac off of him with the pass fake, but it forces him to pick up his dribble and he settles for a floater. When you compare all of this to what we've seen him do this year, it's almost night and day. This year, he's been much more willing to enter the paint with a live dribble, and it makes it so that the defender waiting for him in the paint doesn't have as much breathing room to anticipate what he's going to try and do to get to the rim. Instead of just going straight at the rim like he would last year, he's been using some pass manipulation to keep paint defenders second guessing, and then he's able to snake by them so that he can finish through the contest. This possession is a perfect encapsulation of this newfound willingness to take an extra dribble. He gets Drew behind him in the pick and roll, and Jaylen Brown's going to be the help defender. LaMelo hesitates and uses a nice up fake to get Brown to bite, putting him airborne, and then he just takes an extra dribble so he can get a good look at the rim, and he gets it to fall. Another great example here is how he brings Bruce Brown with him down to the paint before stopping and getting some space with the pump fake, and he's going to get the easiest look that he could ask for. And let's not forget, LaMelo Ball is 6'8". He's a big guy, so it's been promising when we've seen him use that size to back smaller defenders down so that he can create a good look for himself at the rim. You might be thinking, it's the bare minimum for a primary option to be able to score at the rim, so why is it such a point of emphasis for LaMelo Ball? And this is where we really have to talk about his playmaking. I do think that in general, people have forgotten how good of a passer LaMelo Ball is. He's undoubtedly one of the best passers in the NBA, due in large part to his ability to see and make passes that very few guys in the NBA are capable of making, and he's also a very talented ball handler and able to manipulate defenders to create looks. But the thing that's really going to elevate his playmaking to the next level is him being able to draw more defensive attention when he's inside the arc, driving to the rim. It's going to open up a ton of opportunities for his teammates when that help comes to try and slow him down. We know that he's an incredibly effective pick and roll ball handler, and he can make reads to roll men at a high level, but what's really going to elevate his game even more is if he can start forcing teams to help off the strong side corner or hedge against him in the pick and roll due to the threat of his driving ability. Not only is it going to make things easier as far as connecting with bigs on the roll, but it's also going to create a ton of open perimeter shots and make him an even more difficult coverage. He's one of the top drivers in the NBA, and he's making a good amount of passes off of those drives, but a lot of those passes are going to turn into just straight up assists if he can command more defensive attention and get his teammates open. I want to give you guys some perspective on just how good LaMelo Ball has been throughout his career so far, because I'm not sure people truly understand what he's been able to do so far. There are 13 instances in NBA history where a player has averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists with 7 3-point field goal attempts per game while shooting 37% from 3. LaMelo Ball currently has 2 of those seasons, and he's on pace for a third, which would make him and Steph Curry the only players to do that at least 3 times. The fact that LaMelo has a profile that puts him in that realm of player bodes extremely well for his future success. I'm not going to compare LaMelo to the players that he's been thrown into discussions against lately, but one thing I can't get behind is the idea that he's not a winning player. The last time that we saw him fully healthy with an even half-decent roster, the Hornets were an above 500 team, and he was only 20 years old. I really think the worst thing you can say is that we're not quite sure how much he contributes to winning, but you definitely can't say that he doesn't contribute to winning. He's definitely a floor raiser, but how much? If we look back at the 2022 NBA season when he helped the Hornets nab 43 wins, he ranked number 2 in estimated wins contributed by any player under the age of 23, and he was in the 95th percentile in estimated wins contributed across the entire NBA. That was 2 years ago, and all signs point to him being even better. So if the Hornets can be some semblance of competitive, then I think LaMelo's impact on winning is going to be the clearest it's ever been. Now, all of this isn't to say that LaMelo Ball isn't without flaws. He has room to grow on the offensive end and especially on the defensive end. He's one of those players who definitely has the tools to be a quality defender, but he can oftentimes make the wrong rotation and get caught sleeping, and the opposing teams will punish him as a result. Even still though, he's way ahead of most 22-year-olds, and there's no signs that he's even close to being finished improving. People conflate somebody having a flashy game with them not being a winning player. When we've seen LaMelo healthy, he is undoubtedly a floor raiser for whatever team he's on. So do you guys think that LaMelo Ball is having an all-star caliber season so far? What seed do you guys think the Hornets are going to finish as this year? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. If this is your first time visiting the channel, first of all, thank you so much for watching. Second of all, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. It helps me out a ton. As always, huge thank you to my patrons for helping support me and make videos like this possible. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.